If you're tired of places that are too polite, where people smile on cue speak in safe sentences and hide their emotions behind perfectly polished social rules, then come to Serbia. Here, swearing isn't an insult. It's practically a national spice used to express real feelings, to emphasize honesty, and sometimes simply to say that you're alive. Serbia doesn't try to please you. It doesn't apologize for being rough around the edges. And that's exactly what makes this place different. If you're still watching, leave a comment to let me know you're here with this story. And don't forget to hit the follow button in the top right corner, because the journey we're about to take isn't meant for those who only skim the surface. Serbia lies in the Balkans, a crossroads between Eastern and Western Europe, where empires once passed through, collided, left their marks, and moved on. It is a landlocked country, not glamorous on the tourist map, yet it carries a historical weight that is impossible to ignore. Here, the East has never completely disappeared, and the West has never fully dominated. Orthodox churches stand beside Ottoman traces. Aging Yugoslav concrete blocks coexist with modern cafes. Serbia exists in between, leaning toward neither side entirely, much like its people, direct, resilient, full of contradictions, yet so genuine that you can't look away. And that is why, if you are patient enough to listen, Serbia won't remain just a destination. It becomes a story that slowly begins to reach you. 1. The people of Serbia. A beauty never designed to please anyone. Serbian women do not perform femininity. They don't walk to be admired, don't soften their voices to sound agreeable, and don't adjust themselves to fit anyone's expectations. They stand upright, shoulders open, moving at an unhurried pace as if there is no reason to rush. Their gaze is direct and steady, neither avoiding nor seeking approval. It isn't a challenging stare, but the look of someone who has lived with reality long enough to be at peace with it. In Serbia, beauty doesn't live in polished gestures. It lives in the full presence of a person who knows who she is and feels no need to explain it. That beauty isn't born from cosmetics or fashion trends. It is shaped by history, a history where war was never a distant concept, where multi-generational families shared the same roof, the same table, the same long winters, and the same uncertain news. Many Serbian women grew up in homes where mothers carried everything alone, where grandmothers lived through Yugoslavia, through shortages, long lines, loss, and waiting. These stories are not told with tears, but with silence, with endurance, and with the quiet habit of continuing forward without complaint. Because of that, Serbian women learn independence early. Not the kind taught in self-help books, but the kind forged by necessity, by having to stand firm when no one is there to catch you. They are practical, not easily seduced by empty promises or idealized dreams. They understand the value of work education and self-reliance. And they are not afraid of aging because they have watched older women around them live with dignity, sitting tall in cafes, sipping wine, speaking passionately about politics, history, and football, their presence undiminished by time. In Serbia, women don't need to prove their strength. They don't label it or turn it into a slogan. Strength reveals itself in knowing when to stay silent, when to speak, and how to keep moving forward in a life that has never promised ease. It is a beauty not designed to please anyone, and perhaps that is exactly why it leaves such a lasting impression. 2. Belgrade, a city that doesn't hide its cracks. Belgrade is not a smooth city. It hasn't been polished to please visitors nor gentrified into something safe, clean, and easily consumed like many European capitals. Belgrade exists like a real person, with scratches still visible on the skin, with memories that have never been hidden. Here, an old cafe can sit right beside a crumbling building, its peeling concrete still carrying the marks of time and unresolved history. There is no clear boundary between past and present. Everything coexists quietly but honestly. You'll see young Serbians sitting with laptops in spaces that were once socialist-era dormitories, rooms built not to inspire creativity, but to serve a system that no longer exists. They drink coffee, work remotely, speak English, German, or French within walls that once belonged to a closed world. Belgrade doesn't erase its past to start over. It layers the present on top of history the way people learn to keep living without deleting what once hurt them. Belgrade was bombed, and unlike many places, it never tried to erase that memory. The damaged buildings still stand not as monuments, but as part of the everyday landscape. People walk past them daily, neither staring too long nor forgetting. Those scars have become part of the city's rhythm, a reminder that this place was never built to be beautiful. Belgrade was built to endure. 3. Serbian architecture. When no one tries to please you. Architecture in Serbia was never created to impress. It doesn't seek admiration, nor does it try to tell a polished story for outsiders. Many people call the massive Yugoslav-era concrete blocks ugly, an aesthetic failure of a bygone time. But in Serbia, brutalism is not a mistake. It is a statement, a quiet declaration that says we exist and we don't ask for permission to exist. These buildings were not designed to be loved. They were built to endure through cold winters, scarcity, and decades of upheaval. Look closer, and you'll realize Serbian architecture is anything but soulless. Balconies are extended according to each family's needs. Windows are patched together, each pane different, reflecting countless small human decisions. Clotheslines stretch openly across facades, unhidden and unapologetic, reminding you that real life is unfolding behind those walls. There is no perfect uniformity, no standardized beauty. Every alteration is a trace of people adapting, adjusting, and continuing forward. In Serbia, architecture does not force people to conform to it. Instead, people reshape space to fit their lives. And that is precisely what gives this place its identity. The rough concrete blocks, the improvised balconies, the visible imperfections, all of it points to one simple truth: standards may change, but people always come first. 4. Real life. Livable but not easy. Life in Serbia isn't glamorous, but it isn't collapsing either. It exists in a very particular in-between space where people can get by, but rarely feel like they're moving forward. Average wages are low by European standards. Many young people, including university graduates, earn just enough to cover the basics. They juggle part-time jobs, freelance work, language tutoring, online design, small side projects, doing whatever it takes to stay afloat. No one complains loudly. They've grown accustomed to finding their own way. The cost of living is relatively manageable. Simple meals are affordable, coffee is cheap, and local markets still make it possible to cook for an entire week without strain. Rent is reasonable if you're willing to live outside the center or in older buildings. Life isn't luxurious, but it isn't suffocating. And that's where the paradox lies. Serbia isn't poor in a way that breeds desperation, but it also isn't prosperous enough to offer real peace of mind about the future. The hardest part isn't the lack of money, it's the lack of a clear horizon. Young Serbians are educated, multilingual, and hardworking, yet many aren't sure where their effort is leading. The feeling of being held back seeps in quietly, slowly, but persistently. Like an invisible glass ceiling overhead, not crashing down, but never letting you break through. Serbia doesn't push people to the edge. It simply keeps them waiting, longer than they had hoped. 5. The system and the loss of trust. In Serbia, corruption is not a whispered rumor. It's something everyone knows, everyone senses, and almost everyone has learned to accept as part of everyday life. It isn't always loud or openly visible, but it's present everywhere in administrative processes that stretch on without reason, in construction decisions that make little sense, in the quiet understanding that things move more smoothly if you know the right people. People are no longer outraged the way they once were. They've lived through too many disappointments to sustain that kind of anger. What remains isn't rebellion, but a deep, quiet exhaustion. The most capable are often the first to leave. Engineers, doctors, programmers, top students. They carry their skills and hopes to Germany, Austria, Scandinavia, or anywhere the system feels clearer and fairer. Staying in Serbia requires more than love for one's homeland. It demands a high tolerance for endurance. Those who remain learn to adjust their expectations, lower their voices, and adapt to reality instead of trying to change it. Not because they agree with it, but because they want a life with some measure of peace. The most frightening thing is not injustice itself. Injustice exists everywhere in every society. The truly dangerous moment is when people grow used to it, when they stop being surprised, stop asking questions, and stop believing things could be different. That silence isn't loud, and it doesn't draw attention, but it erodes trust day by day. And that is the heaviest price a society can pay, not for what is taken away, but for what people slowly stop expecting altogether. 6. Serbian dignity. What cannot be taken away. Despite their frustration with the system, despite their exhaustion with injustice, Serbians rarely beg. They don't lower themselves to seek pity, nor do they shrink in the face of hardship. There is an invisible line they refuse to cross, the line of dignity. You see it in the way they keep their word, even over something small, in the way they live according to their own rhythm, without showmanship, without permission, without the need for outside approval. That dignity reveals itself in the most ordinary moments. A glass of rakia poured generously and placed in a guest's hand, not as a display, but as a quiet ritual of respect. A simple meal shared while family stories are told slowly, without embellishment, without avoiding the hard years. These stories aren't meant to move you emotionally. They are told to remember, to preserve, and to remind everyone of what has been endured. In Serbia, people may be poor in money, but they are not poor in self-respect. They may remain silent in the face of injustice, but they do not lose themselves. Dignity here isn't expressed through loud words or dramatic gestures. It lives in the way people stand upright when life is difficult, in the way they continue forward without betraying their core values. Serbian dignity is not loud, but it is unbreakable. 7. Serbia beyond the cities, where nature becomes a place of healing. Once you leave Belgrade behind, Serbia begins to breathe differently. The noise fades, the concrete layers of memory fall away. In the north, the plains of Vojvodina stretch out flat and calm like still water. Wheat and sunflower fields roll toward the horizon. Villages sit low and unassuming dirt roads threading between rows of birch trees. Mornings begin slowly, afternoons settle early. Time here doesn't push you forward. It simply moves slow enough for you to hear the wind passing through the fields and the creak of wooden doors opening at dawn. As you move south, the land shifts. Mountains rise, rougher forests grow denser, more untamed. Winding roads lead into Taras-Zlatibor and Uvak places, where morning fog clings to pine tops and lakes reflect drifting clouds like quiet mirrors. There are no flashing signs, no noisy tour buses. Monasteries hide deep in the woods, built of gray stone domes, aged walls softened by moss, not meant to be photographed, but simply to exist. Here, silence is not emptiness. It is presence. People live slowly, not because it's fashionable, but because there is no longer a reason to run. No race to win, no pressure to become something else. Mornings in the garden, midday trips to the market, evenings on the porch with a small glass of rakia and old stories. This rhythm doesn't promise transformation, but it offers something rare room to breathe. In Serbia, beyond the cities, nature doesn't try to overwhelm you. It stays quietly beside you, wide enough to let you slow down, real enough to remind you that sometimes slowness isn't a choice but a form of healing. 8. Music and festivals. When emotion needs no translation. In Serbia, music isn't just something you listen to. It's something you release. Guka is often called a festival, but to Serbians it's not an event on a calendar. It's more like a door opening a place where emotions held in all year are finally set free. When the trumpets start to play, no one stays on the sidelines. People step into the crowd, laugh, cry, drink, dance without needing to know where you're from or who you are. Here, music doesn't demand refinement. It demands truth. Balkan trumpet music doesn't chase perfect melody. It isn't smooth or polished, sometimes harsh, sometimes offbeat. But every note carries human breath, joy, anger, longing, survival. You don't need to understand the lyrics or the history behind it. Your body responds on its own. Feet begin to move, hearts beat faster, and in that moment, all boundaries disappear. If Western music is harmony carefully constructed to please the ear, then Balkan music is a heartbeat, raw, uneven, but alive. It doesn't try to make you comfortable. It tells you one simple thing: we are here, we are feeling, and we have never been silent. At Gucha, music needs no translation because emotion itself, becomes the common language. Serbia isn't a glamorous invitation. It doesn't promise wealth, it doesn't guarantee an easy life, and it certainly isn't a place that's trending on the world map. Serbia exists quietly, sometimes stubborn, sometimes tired, much like the people who have lived here long enough to stop chasing illusions. And precisely because of that, it doesn't deceive you. It doesn't dress itself up in perfection just to be liked. If you're tired of pretenses, tired of having to look okay every day when inside you're not quite there, tired of cities that are too clean, too smooth, too carefully arranged places where everything looks beautiful, yet nothing feels grounding, then Serbia may not offer you a clear future. But it gives you something rarer, the feeling of being yourself, unedited and unapologetic. Here you don't have to become a better version of yourself to be accepted. You simply have to exist. Serbia doesn't pull you in. It doesn't try to convince you to stay. But if you linger long enough, some places stay with you long after you've left. And if this made you want to breathe a little slower, follow along. We're not done yet.